Okay, let's see if we got sound now. There we go. It looks like we got sound, which is great. Sorry to have got rid of all you guys, but I seem to have sound now, which is a great move forward. And let's see if we can pick you all up again. I'm just going to say here that new feed with sound. And let's hope that that's all in order as far as all of you are. Right, Vivek, have we got sound now? Vivek, give us a call back and just give us a note back. That's fantastic that you can hear me. Right. So now let's see who we get on board. We had a whole lot of the team on board. Apologies for that. I had to restart the show because unfortunately no sound, no point in even chatting to you. Good news, firstly, was the Racing Association. 3.9 million has been paid out to trainers, which is to be credited to the owners of R1,000 each horse. There are 3,879 horses that benefited from this, which I think is absolutely fantastic. And really a great move on behalf of the Racing Association to help the business. Right, obviously, Pumalela, we know what's going on there, and we're just waiting to hear, which will be certainly weeks, if not months, before we hear what goes on there. Let's go to the rest of the world. A couple of interesting things that happened on the rest of the world. Firstly, 2 horses tested positive for equine herpes, which is very serious, and that was at Woodbine in Canada. Now, Woodbine expects to start racing in Canada on 6th of June. And if you've got 2 horses with equine herpes, they've immediately been moved, but that barn is in lockdown, barn 12. Who knows what will happen then? Ireland ready to resume, and the 2 big days to look forward at Ireland will be the Guineas days, which is the 12th and 13th of June. So looking forward to that. Is everyone else able to hear? That's the main thing. Almond Eye, the Japanese champion filly, won the Victoria Mile, which is a 7th Group 1 win of the season of her career. She's some type of horse. The other record maker was Flavian Pratt, who's an American jockey riding Santa Anita's first meeting on Sunday. 6 out of the 10 race card. He had 9 rides. He doesn't match Lafayette Pincay Jr., who rode 7 once, but there were about 14 or 15 jockeys who have ridden 6. I know Lafayette rode it 3 times, 6 winners on the card, which is absolutely fantastic. Preakness is to be run on the 3rd of October, the Kentucky Derby 5th of September. So the spacing's a little longer. It used to be 3 weeks between each of the Triple Crown races. It's now 4 weeks, which gives the horses a bit more chance to recover. And there's still no date for the 3rd leg, which is the Belmont Stakes. New York Cracks, 1st of June. They open up on the 1st of June. So they're all out there. 49er, great old stallion. He was by a Mr. Prospect out of a Tom Rolfe mare. I mean, he's a fantastic horse. And I think this might be David. We've got David on the line. So let's see if we can pick him up. David, how are you?
Good, thanks. And you, James?
Excellent. I hope we can hear you loud and clear, because I know a lot of people have been looking forward to this interview.
Yeah, James, I do have you on speakerphone because for many years now I try and keep the cell phone away from my ear and my head. You know, I do believe it's not good for you in the long run.
What's it going to do to you, David?
The last 2 brain cells I got might be in trouble.
At least you got 2. You got 2 more than most of us.
Well, James, maybe I miscounted.
Good lad, David. Nice to have you on the show. Now, Formgrids is not up at the moment. Is that correct?
James, I think, Wolfgang, we're changing service. Unashamedly to save some money, because we were on an international server, and with the way the dollar is to the rand, and with the way we're predicting the dollar to go to the rand, a couple of $100 a month on a server can work out to more money than we need to fork out at this stage.
Yeah, it's certainly all about cost cutting for everyone at this stage. How are you going as far as this coronavirus is concerned? What do you see as being one of those visionaries? What do you see in the future?
Well, James, you know, quite personally for racing, You know, I can never see racing, when I say never, not in my lifetime, being where it was. Certainly never ever back to the 80s and 90s and that time, but not even back to where it was at its worst now. Once we get going, it's going to take years, and it's going to take some very good years to even start rebuilding what we had.
Innovation is going to be the name, David, and certainly working as a team together with people that are innovative, and that obviously brings us to Formgrids.
Thanks, James. It was innovative at the time, and I hear you with innovation, but I think we've always had innovation. But the problem was once Phumelela was brought into being and conceptualized and taken on, that to me was the beginning of the end for racing, because I don't know if you remember our show, although it was only in 2011. And Phumelela had been around for quite a while. I did say to you, and you agreed with me that day on your show, that Phumelela, its executives, and the money takeout for the shareholders could never sustain the game. It had to hit the dust, which it did.
Yeah, it was very prophetic in those days, and we got into a bit of trouble for it too, because, you know, they hated criticism.
Yes, but they just sort of taken heed of what the fools had to say. They might have adopted different tactics. That's why I say there was a lot of innovation, but unfortunately we had executives running the show that never had racing as their first priority. For whatever reason, everybody wants to get rich quick. And, you know, they think to themselves, I've got this good position, I better make hay while the sun shines. I'll be a fool if I don't set myself up for life. And you've got innovation. We've got a lot of brilliant racing people. I mean, you can recall, like I can recall, the young ones can't, but we were by far a first world racing nation.
Oh yes, we had some. We had top class racing. We produced top class horses, and everything. Everything was set up to be right. It should have been right. The problem was, and there's only one real problem that hit racing, in my opinion, and you can bear this out, was that shareholders took preference over the business, over managing and running the business and having enough capital and cash to be able to put into the business to make it run smoothly and make it prosper.
1,000% right. And those shareholders, unfortunately, thought short-term into their pockets.
Excuse me.
Short-term into their pockets, and some of them were in board members, and they got caught up in a place where do they rock the boat, or do they just shut up and allow the rot to continue and hope somehow it's all going to manage to sort itself out? So when we used to warn them and try and get some justice in racing and some sort of fair play in racing, they would always just sort of stonewall you. You were going nowhere. You couldn't complain to nobody. Everybody knew what the bad apples were doing, and everybody just kept quiet and accepted it. And as you say, it's because some of those very, very board members were big shareholders. So what do? Do you open your mouth and make a noise and cut off your own income? Or do you wait for racing to hit the dirt, which has happened now? And I think all of them, no matter how much they made, I don't think there's one of them that can say, I'm happy about what's happened.
Or what I did for the sport.
Well, they got to hang their heads in shame.
Okay, so now let's go back. That's a great introduction. Let's go back and chat about how you conceptualized Formgrids, your early days in racing, because I know you were probably one of the best punters and form studiers I'd ever met.
You know, James, yes, I did have my time. What happened was, you know, I was like most other youngsters my age and guys from our generation. We were all sick for racing.
Yeah, the Southern boys, the South boys.
Yes, and even the North, boys. I mean, everybody, we were all racing crazy. You couldn't wait for Wednesday. You couldn't wait for Saturday. In fact, even from school, one thing they knew, don't look for me on a Wednesday at school.
Yeah, don't look for me on a Wednesday at school. And Friday afternoon, I'm going early because I've got to study the card. By then it was out.
Exactly, James. And, so I wanted to become a jockey from a young age. I did end up going to the USA when I was 24 to continue with wanting to become a jockey. I had two accidents in 1 week, which was quite freakish. But the thing was, as a youngster, obviously wanting to be a jockey, I really looked up to some of the jockeys that were riding. And I was very fortunate, Look Lively nightclub, where Tex Lorena and Martin Skuman owned the Look Lively. And we used to go there in the mid-70s. And, of course, I got to know Tex, and I got to know a couple of the jockeys. And later on, I met Raymond Rhodes, a genius on a horse, Gerald Turner, Gerald. Roy Curling one day said to me, when I said to him, who is the best, Roy? We were together, and he just motioned to me with his eyes at Gerald. Yeah. And he said he was the best.
Yeah, he was a brilliant rider. But there were some brilliant riders in that era. And Marty Skuman, you said, remember him. There were just some fantastic riders in those days. Benny Little rode for the strongest stable around, and then guys like Amando Freddy and that came along. There were some really, really good riders at 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Yes, so as you say, we had a very, very first world racing country in every aspect of the game.
Okay, so you obviously called it a day as a jockey, and then you came onto the race course as a punter, and you were a professional punter. You found out the graft, and you knew what was going on, and things changed because in the 70s, I remember when I started training in the 70s, there was a lot of business being run by big gamblers. I mean, the big gamblers in those days, Jaime Tucker and them, ran the racing, and things gradually changed. And I always said, because of Gene Hemming and John Nicholson, Ricky Maingard, myself, Spike Lorena, guys came in that wanted to win races and weren't interested in the graft. And things changed, didn't they?
Yes, of course. And as you say, in those days where we had Jaime and the boys around, it was big money business. There were huge gamblers. Jaime Tucker, they say, if it wasn't in the red, don't even come to him for a bet. Yeah. But, when I went to the USA in 84, I worked for Charlie Whittingham, who was known as the Bald Eagle, and they used to tout his name around as the world's greatest trainer, which is a difficult thing to say, but the Americans like to say that, and Bill Shoemaker was his stable jockey. And me being a hot walker and a groom, I would, because I saw there that, it wasn't a Mr. Whittingham. We would be hot walking horses in the morning, and one of the Mexican hot walkers would just shout to him, Charlie. And there Charlie Whittingham would come and hot walk the horse while the groom went for a quick hot chocolate or coffee. So I soon realized my South African Sir Mr. Grovel, kiss the ground type attitude, the Americans don't see things that way. So one day I plucked up the courage, because they used to post up the day's runner on one board, so the grooms knew what time to have the horse from the backstretch, backside of the track to go to be saddled up and taken to walked onto the course. So one day I said to him, Charlie, how will our runners do today? Coming from the South African background of liking to gamble. And he circled, this will win, this should run third. And lo and behold, that's more or less how they ran. And the next day when there was runners again, I kept asking him, because I like to have my couple of dollars here and there. And I wondered to myself, how come they are so accurate with their tips? And I said to him, Mr. Whittingham or Charlie, I said, in South Africa, this information is very valuable, You just tip me the horses and that's how they run. And I thought about it, and I sat there at the racetracks, and I used to watch. After every single race, they would bring those tractors out, and they would grade the track. The tractors would go around, and after watching that, and I realized, they're taking the go-in back to the state it was the race before.
Correct.
And they race Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, continually for maybe 2.5 to 3 months at Santa Anita. Then they'll move to Hollywood Park. Then they'll move to Del Mar. But for 3 months, the track is nearly the same every day. That's why the Americans swear by time.
Yeah.
And remember, they jump and go. There's no playing around and sitting on horses. They go. So once you take times into account in America, you can become pretty accurate as a tipster. Then I started considering to myself, well, we got Newmarket, we got Germiston, we got Vaal, we got Turfentine, all different size tracks. There it's all built to one circumference. All the tracks are built the same.
Yeah.
The same run-in, the same backstretch, the same bends. And I had to start putting into my head how I would adapt all of the stuff into South African racing. That's why on Formgrids, when I introduced the length behind, same day, same distance. You understand? That's what helped me. That's what helped me to now.
That's the most important tool, because it tells you if the going is consistent and times you can correlate one time against the other. It tells you exactly how that horse ran, if it was ridden to the best of its potential.
And once you match that, of course, records or class records, considering what weights the horse are carried, etc., you can get far more accurate. And, bear in mind, that's all I've done for many, many years. I had a philosophy not to even mow the lawn. I was into racing, and that's all I've done. I've done pretty much nothing else. I read exactly 2 books. One was the Bible, and the other one was the race book. Nothing else. All I filled my mind with was where my passion was the horse racing.
Okay, so from that you built, you conceptualized Formgrids. How did you go about building it, David?
Well, firstly, in the 80s, I used to do it on an old Olivetti kind of a typing machine with a screen.
Yes.
So I got some lady, Carol, that helped me, and we got it going, and I started getting the times in, and I would take all the times, I would factor in going, I would factor in certain things about the track which are important to me, and I would put the horses in one long list, and I would sort of grade them similar to a merit rating or a time form, but built to my own standards.
Okay.
So pretty soon, like you had that horse, I think it was Natural Force, that Donovan Abbott one is, was it Natural Force?
The wonderful, Natural Force. He was Mexico. First time out, he beat a 4 to 10 shot of Gene Hemmings. We lined him up. It was one of the best coups I ever pulled. Yeah, in a juvenile plate.
Yes, and the times on the day and everything. So I knew exactly where your horse fitted in already, and where it would go to next, and already I knew what I feel you knew. I had already mapped out in my mind where he'd go, where he fits in, what he'll do when he eventually meets the older horses, because that weight for age scale is a very important tool.
Yes.
But of course, you've got to adapt it to the South African scenario, which is slightly different, and I know people will have a knock at me, but there are slight differences there. Remember, the weight for age scale was worked out in the UK, and you've just got to know where to edit and where to add on in your own mind. But I got it to a very, very accurate state in my own mind.
You know what's interesting is Mike de Kock won the Met with Horse Chestnut as a 3-year-old, and they all said it was unheard of, not possible to do. But he was a great believer, and I remember him telling me at the time that the weight for age scale was made in 1870 by whoever it was in England. I remember the guy's name, it just now, and
Admiral Brew.
Admiral Ross, Admiral Ross.
Yeah.
And then what happened was that since 1870, when he started the weight for age scale, it actually hasn't changed, but the horse has changed. The horse has evolved from being a sort of maturing 3-year-old and 4-year-old to a maturing 2-year-old and 3-year-old. And he says that's why the weight for age scale favored the 3-year-old when it came to the old horses at that time of the year, and he was prepared to take on the Met field.
There you go. You see, Mike has burgled a lot of races by simply knowing where they fit in at what time of the year. And I've made a lot of money following some of Mike's horses being put into the right races at the right times.
Genius he is. Whittingham was a genius, de Kock's a genius. Don't worry about that.
There you go. James, you were not too bad yourself. I pulled off lots of nice coups on your horses as well.
Well, I know that you approached me on a couple of times on the racetrack and said to me, what did I think of the horse? And if I told you the horse, I thought the horse was right, you went and backed it. And you gave me confidence because you knew how to read the form better than anyone else. So we helped each other. And that's what this business is all about. You've got to help each other. But all right, let's move on from there. So now, how did Formgrids come about? Now, you've got all this information in your head. You've started putting it down on an Olivetti on a flat screen. Formgrids is quite a long way down the line from that.
Yes, I mean, we had our stage where we so-called terrorized Bruma Tattersalls when you had 13 or 15 of the best bookmakers in one little area. And we had a lot of fun, and eventually, after a friend of mine, Mike Holden, who actually lived with me, had a little bit of an unfortunate incident, I called it a day with racing.
But just talking about the Bruma Tattersalls era, it was a fantastic setup, Bruma Tattersalls, because you could go in there and there were some bookmakers that were pretty fearless. They would take whatever strike you wanted to do. And I remember us going in there sort of 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning when there was racing in KwaZulu-Natal or whatever. I remembered backing horses in KwaZulu-Natal at Bruma Tattersalls and being able to get on. You could get money on there.
You know, it was brilliant. Len Smart, I think, was the innovator behind that. He came up with moving out of Loveday Street towards Bruma, where they put together such a lovely setup. The service there was fantastic. You had a buffet every day. It was just the most beautiful place. And like you say, you could get on. Whatever money you had, those boys could accommodate and lay off all around the country, whatever they needed to do. They were big. But we evolved to such an extent, James, and many bookmakers will tell you, I don't have to talk nonsense to you, but after we hit them for 2-3 million on a day on a single horse, they would line up at the table in a queue like schoolboys, wait their turn, and then alter the tickets. If the ticket was like at 5-1, 200 to 50, they would knock it down after the horses won to 120 to 50 or 130 to 50.
That's all they could pay.
That's all they could pay.
And you terrorized them, all right.
Well, you see, James, it was like you sitting on the hill with a telescopic sight, because I didn't punt every race.
Yeah.
I just waited, even if it took me 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I waited for a horse to be in the right race with the right field, with everything in its favor, and you just slowly squeeze the trigger.
Yeah.
All that has to happen is the gates have to open, and if the horse doesn't fall, you wait in the queue.
Yeah. But
so Roy came to me one day and he said to me, listen, you know, because it happened years before when I had Saga, when I first started the South African Racegoers Association, him and Gerald both warned me that certain people were fed up with me fighting for the punter and the way I'm going about things, and I should stop. It's better for me if I stop. And I listened to them. That's why I stopped Saga when I did, many years ago, the South African Racegoers Association.
Yeah.
So this time when he phoned me and he said, I have to speak to you, he came to my house, he said, listen to me, you have to stop punting. Give me a figure of how much you need a month to live, and I will make sure that once a month we get that money, but you have to stop punting. And I said, but why, Roy? He said, because you are causing havoc in the industry. The owner and the trainer go racing. They're not going to back the horse. They're going for lunch. And the trainers told the owner, don't have a bet. And the next thing, the horse shortens 5-1, 9-2, 9-2, 4-1, 4-1, 7-2. And now the owner says to the trainer, what's going on? The trainer says, I don't know. Whose money is it? I don't know. Bang, the horse arrives. The trainer runs down. Him and the jockey end up in an argument. So they said, I'm causing too much trouble in the industry. I must stop punting. I never listened. I mean, because we were young and stupid and having a lot of fun.
The point was you're entitled to punt. That you had better tools to punt is nobody else's business. You know, I was just watching a thing on YouTube now about JP McManus. Same type of thing. You know, he was better than the game. And when you're better than the game and you're patient and you're prepared to wait, you're entitled to do whatever you like. But it comes back to the whole story: jealousy, okay, and greed. And both of those things go hand in hand, unfortunately.
Yes, and arrogance goes with them, because you saw what happened to Jean Hemming in the prime of her life. She got shot opening the door, and how many shootings there were. We know all about those things, because in the older days, things were rough. There was a very heavy element in racing, and they had no hesitation in taking care of business, as they would probably call it.
Pulling the trigger, yeah. Okay, yeah. So what I wanted to just go on to the start of Formgrids with you, and then we can get...
So in 2003,
yeah.
I bumped into a guy in the Bedford Centre in a bookshop, because I used to go around buying all the old racing books.
Okay.
You know, like Fred Rickaby's book and Ted Shaw, and, all these guys had written their autobiographies. So I used to love finding those old books and enjoy reading them,
Yeah.
And I bumped into this guy.
So just on that, David, you graduated from your school days where you only read the Bible and the race book, okay, to starting to read people's books.
Yeah, but I consider them race books, James. Yeah, so, but by now I'd been out of racing since I think 96 or 97. I got out of racing, and I hadn't done more than a little bit of a glance at racing till about 2003, 2004. When I bumped into the guy at the bookshop, he just gave me that feel. You meet certain people, and I just had that feeling that this guy, there's something to him. So I asked him, what do you do? So he said, no, he's a computer programmer. So I said, okay. Then I said to him, if I want you to put this thing on a computer program, can you do it for me? He said, sure, he'll take a look at it. And that was Wolfgang. That's the day I met him.
Good gracious.
Yeah. So we put Formgrids together. And the only one I had showed at that stage was the same guy who got shot, Michael Holden. So we were still contemplating, because Michael assisted in the beginning, because it was a huge effort to get all that data into the database. Okay. Every single race had to be done. And I had done it manually. Each single horse, each single race, each single result. So in one race, I would have to update 11 horses times if they've had 6 runs, 8 runs, 9 runs. It was an absolute mountain of work in the beginning to show Wolfgang exactly what I am looking for. And once he started to get it automated, it still became a heavy thing with copy and paste and finding the errors. And I used to work till 3, 4 o'clock in the morning some days, and I had to be up for work by 8:30 the next day.
What work were you doing at that time, David?
I got into the private investigation and debt recovery business.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what I was doing during the day, and working from after work right through to whatever hours. It was very difficult work. I had a handful of people assisting. We done the whole of the USA and Canada. We done the whole of the UK. We had South Africa, Zimbabwe, Dubai, Hong Kong. You cannot believe the amount of work. And the very first person I ever showed it to, because I went to Mike de Kock's stables at Reinkiesfontein, because I knew if David Saffi introduces this program into horse racing, it's going to never be accepted, because I believe I was what they call notorious for whatever reason, God knows. But, yeah. So who was there was Charles Pretorius. And as Charles saw the system, and I showed it to him because Mike wasn't there that day, I wanted him to introduce it as like his project,
Yeah.
And then within hours, Charles and Henry Wilkinson phoned me. I think he was from the Greyville. Now he sponsored some race at the time, or
yeah, he was a big punter, Henry Wilkinson. I know he punted for jockeys, and
Yes.
I think that was his downfall. He ended up going out like a light. He's a very nice man, Henry. I met him on a number of occasions, but he certainly lost a fortune in business. And I know that he was involved in the KwaZulu-Natal setup here. But I know certain jockeys who really stuck him out. I mean, he just ended up with nothing. But anyway, you say he and Charles Pretorius were obviously mates.
Yes, and Charles was the very first person, other than a small little handful of people who were in my circle, to see Formgrids. I mean, Gary Soma had seen it, and Gary, if I must say, out of everybody I've ever mixed with in racing, if there was anyone that was on my level as far as tipping horses goes, Gary was a genius.
Yeah.
He even used to surprise me.
Yeah.
And when I showed Gary this, Gary said to me immediately, he says, "Dave, this is fantastic." So we were still contemplating whether we keep this to ourselves. Do we give it to the industry? And they were saying to me, "You're crazy. Why give it away?" And I said, because racing is going down. It's all over the news. Racing is taking a bit of a dive. It's such a beautiful tool. Give it to the public. Give it to the people. Let them enjoy it.
And teach them to use it. David, I'll tell you what, we've gone half an hour, and I think that half an hour seems to be the sort of niche time that we have on this show. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to say to you, we come back on Thursday, and then we go into the nitty-gritty of exactly what happened with Formgrids and how you were the industry was uncooperative in what they did to you. Would that suit you?
Yes, it would, James. Let's get the story out there, or as much of it as we can, because it's a lesson for people in the future how to avoid those kind of pitfalls. Because if they do ever manage to revive racing, you certainly don't want it to get in the clutches of the wrong people again.
Exactly. Well, David, thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to putting it out on Thursday again. We'll probably get a lot of comment on this show so far, but appreciate it, and we'll go forward on Thursday.
Thank you, James. Have a lovely night.
Thank you, and you, David. Take it easy.
Okay, bye.
David Saffi, for those of you out there, you now know a little bit about the man. I mean, he's pure genius. He's and what he tried to do, when you hear this, the next part of it, and how he tried to put this together, was basically for the industry. I mean, he's a wonderful guy. Are there any questions out there before we close up? I know that there are a lot of you watching and listening to the show, and I'm sure you've enjoyed it. Is there anything that anyone wants to ask before we go? Not so much about Formgrids, about racing, what's going on out there, because I'm just going to finish with a few of the things that I was telling you about. 49er died. The wonderful thing about 49er, as I said, is that he was 35 years old, and he was in Japan, and he's been retired since 2007. So they looked after him. Steve, any inside info on the top of the pile application? No, Steve, unfortunately, I'll be after you to hear this, because you always get the information from me. Yeah, well, V is a big boss. You know what? He's moved from Pumalela, jumped off the ship there and got onto a new ship. And hopefully, he's got a lot going for him, V. Hopefully they like the look, because the look is what goes with V. Let's see what happens. What else was there? Moreira and Purton. This is the last big bit of news that you need to know. Moreira and Purton are exactly tied. We have Happy Valley Racing tomorrow. That's Wednesday, and that's why I didn't make the show with David for tomorrow, because a lot of you like Happy Valley and like to get involved and get interested in it. And so that should be good racing. There's a lot of stuff out there. John Sweet, a great tipster. I mean, this guy's got a great following, and I know he's a Formgrids man, and certainly he could tip a winner or two. John, thanks for joining us, and we look forward to Thursday as well. All of you out there, Daniel, very interesting. Well, you know what? This is what we'll find out. You're going to find out, Daniel, about Formgrids, because by the time this is over, anyone will be able to go onto Formgrids when they got the new site up and running, and it is the most marvelous tool. And I've always found David Saffi an absolute genius, and I've really been sad about the way he's been treated. And when you listen to the next lot, you will hear exactly what happened to him, because he has voice notes on his discussions with various people, which are live. So he's going to be able to tell us all those things. And I think it will be good, and I think it will be fun, and I think it will be very informative, and certainly will enlighten a lot of you out there as to what this product is all about and what this tool is all about. I couldn't live without it. As a racehorse trainer, I used it extensively all my life, and certainly as a pundit lately, when I've been sort of doing the show where I've been tipping through race cards, I never went on the show without doing my homework on Formgrids, because you're able to get the collateral form. Everything out there works. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us. Until Thursday, you have a great couple of days, and enjoy Hong Kong tomorrow.